Hello, welcome back to episode 2 of Wafflin Around with your host Tyler Sayuda and Chris Stamos.
Welcome back, guys. Week number two of the podcast. We're going to keep things rolling, keep it consistent, try and get everything out about 12 o'clock Eastern time on Tuesdays. So you could expect that from us if you don't have notifications on. And we got some criticisms on our last episode, positive criticisms, I should say, just stuff that could improve the quality. And we're going to implement those things today and see if we can get, a little bit better video for you guys.
Yeah, for sure. So Chris, what do we got going today? What are we talking about?
So, um, we both shared the podcast out, right? So,
Hmm.
plenty of people that don't know me were watching that, found us from you,
For
and
sure.
vice versa. Plenty of people from me watching that don't know you. So, why don't you start us off by giving us a little background information, kind of elaborating on your hockey, your hockey career, what got you into the sport specifically, and just some other things about you that our fans would like to know before they start hearing from us more.
Yeah, for sure. I really got into goalie just because my dad said he played when he was younger. He had the gloves, so I'd always put those on, and I'm like, man, this just seems so cool, and I just loved it. And I am a full right, so once I put those gloves on, I'm like, this is how it has to be. I have to be a full right from now on. So to this day, I'm still a full right. Um, but growing up, I was always a house hockey goalie. So I'm actually from Cincinnati, Ohio. So I played for the Cincinnati Swords. That was the local youth program. It was just house. I wasn't the greatest. So yeah, so we were the Sabres my 10U year. My 12U year, we turned into the Swords. And then 12 through 14s, I played house for the Swords. And then I got to high school, played varsity as a freshman and sophomore at Elder High School. And then my junior, senior year, I played for the Northern Kentucky Norsemen. And then after that, I played 2 years of juniors, one for the Cincinnati Junior Cyclones, of obviously the USPHL. And then I played a year for the Chicago Crush in the USPHL Elite Division.
And if you guys don't know already, that's how me and Ty met. That's why this podcast is a thing, and that's why we're such good buddies now.
Oh yeah.
Um,
So
I mean, sadly, we're not in Chicago together anymore because we'd be doing this in person, face to face. That'd be a
yeah,
lot of fun. But until we hang out again, probably won't be getting that done. But now, I guess I got to talk about myself.
yep,
So
your
I started
turn.
hockey. Well, I started skating, I should say, at a very, very young age, about 4 or 5. Just figure skating lessons, just the basics, know how to skate. I took interest to hockey after learning how to skate. Um, we signed up for the wrong age level. I was about 5 or 6 with 12 or 13 year olds, and they were just whizzing by me, and I couldn't even stand up on my 2 feet. So that kind of discouraged me as a young kid, and I just stuck to baseball, basketball, and the more simple sports that everybody else did, caught my eye more. Um, till my uncle actually, gave me a hockey stick at a family party, and we were playing out front, and he told me, "Get your skates, get your gear. Um, let's go to intro to hockey, basically ADMs that our rink had organized." So I learned how to play there. Did that for like 2 or 3 years, so I felt really confident with my skill. And then I played my first ever year of competitive hockey at age 12, and I wasn't a goalie. I was a forward, and then I played defense. So I've played all positions except for center, which is kind of crazy. Only missing one.
Yeah,
Um, After that spring season, I took extreme interest in goaltending. Just playing NHL on the Xbox and playing goalie mode and seeing all the customization of gear and just how cool it could be to be a goalie. I just fell in love with it. And my parents hooked me up with a private coach. We got about half a year in training. And once he said we're ready, I was about 13 or 14 starting that. And we played my very first game against an all girls team, an age level above us, and it didn't go too well. Um, this was all house hockey, by the way, for the Arctic Junior Fury. Uh, B level hockey in the state of Illinois. I don't know what that is for you guys out in Cincinnati, but that's what it is here. Um, then after that, I went high school playing for the Chicago Cobras. Um, the league I played in while I was there no longer exists. They're in a different league now. So that's irrelevant information. Um, I then moved my efforts my junior year to the Joliet Jaguars, which was a tier two youth hockey team. Played out my final 3 seasons of youth hockey there and played a single season of junior with the Crush, as you heard before. And now I'm committed to play college hockey at Davenport University. So that's been my ride. That's how I got into goaltending. That's how I got into hockey. So
Yeah, I was gonna say over here in Cincy, we don't really have the whole like AB. Like it's just we have like house, we have double A, and then we have triple A, and they're
okay,
both kind of like our triple A would be like double A or single A, basically anywhere else. So
really.
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not the
there's a
best
few
hockey here in Cincy.
outliers. There's a
Oh
few
yeah, for
outliers, I
sure.
think, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean the further north you go, like Columbus, they have good triple A teams, but here
Cleveland
in Cincy,
Barons,
not
that's
so
a
good.
decent club.
Yeah,
So let's talk about stats. We were big stats guys.
we are big stats guys.
We kept quite a few this season.
Yep.
Um, Found some interesting trends and whatnot. Um, really piqued our interest at one point in the year. But you found a story, and I want you to share that with people, and then we can kind of give our take.
Yeah, so there's this goalie that I follow on Instagram, and he's I don't know, maybe 14, and he's well, I want to say he's 13. But he's keeping track of all of his stats, goals against, his save percentage, wins loss, shutouts, like all that stuff. And he's like 13. So yeah, I just saw that on Instagram the other day. I'm like, is that really like how early we need to start counting stats? And I kind of just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, so I don't really know about the age we should start keeping track of stats. I know up in Canada there is a certain age level where it's like, okay, I need to get drafted to a major junior league. Stats are really heavily considered, but I don't think that's until 15U, 14U. Um,
But it's also in that little like weird time range where it's like, do I need to worry about stats even though they're going to be like uploaded and looked at? Like,
right,
how much do you really need to focus on the numbers,
right.
especially as
And
a youth
so
goalie?
that was going to be my second point. So if you're a younger goalie and you see your stats are not up to your standards, it's an easy way to get down on yourself, right? You see then your save percentage in the 800s, your goals against average is maybe in the threes. You know, it's an easy way to really break down mentally and feel unhappy with your performance, whether or not that being a good one or a bad one, right? Like we watched the podcast about stats with Jamie Phillips, and he was saying that you could play a great game, win your team the game, maybe have an 880 save percentage, but you still played a really strong game. You made the saves when you needed to, and that's what really matters in the end. So I think there's good and bad at tracking stats. You kind of can see whether or not you're consistent. You could portray those numbers on the internet and get coaches' attention. But at the same time, you can kind of fall into this bad habit of, oh, I didn't play good this game. Like my numbers aren't looking too good right now. Rather than seeing your performance and saying, oh, I felt good. I was seeing the puck good. Just didn't get to face the amount of shots I would have liked to seen. And my numbers don't reflect how good I really played. So, especially at that age, I think, it's great to keep track just to have. portray it out there, give it to coaches, but I wouldn't let it get too far in your head. I think it's very easy to go off the rails and just get so dialed in on stats that you don't even focus on the task at hand. And I just kind of want to hear your take on that.
Yeah, so obviously you're talking about like sometimes you aren't just going to see the amount of shots you're looking for in a game. But even if you are, like they could all be like bar down snipes, and you save like 9 out of those. Like let's say they had 10 shots, you save 9 of them. It's a 900. Or it's like all bar down snipes, you save 1 out of 10, right? It's so goes against average and um, save percentage aren't a measure of the caliber of a shot, which I don't like. I don't know if the viewers are keeping up with the USPHL, but a Decatur Blaze shot is not the same as a Metro Jet shot.
No.
I mean, essentially, you you have to take into account like where that shot's coming from, right? Like your coach isn't going to be as mad if you let in a backdoor one timer and it's like one goal and you let's say you've had 2 shots. Like he's not going to be mad about that. Like you can't
Right.
because it's a high quality scoring opportunity. And
Right.
then
So hold on. That
go
brings
ahead,
me
I
to a
gotcha.
new stat that they've been keeping track of. Saves above expected and
Hmm.
goals saved above expected. Two great stats, which take account for what kind of shot it was, who took the shot, where the shot came from, the situation, and calculates whether or not you should have made that save, and then gives a more accurate representation of how well you played based on the goals you gave up and the saves you made. Right. So I feel like, that could be a great stat to incorporate. It's definitely hard to keep track of if you don't have like 360 cameras, you don't have all the camera angles, you don't have player trackers, stuff like that. So we got to kind of fall back to these simple numbers, like you were saying.
Hmm.
But carry on with your thought there.
Another thing, like with goals against average, like that's a really unique stat in itself, right? It's almost like the ERA when it comes to baseball. Like it's measured weird. So goals against is goals times however many minutes you play divided by however many minutes you played. So let's say you let in 1 goal in 1 minute, 1 times 1, divided by however total minutes you play. So,
Hmm. Is
well,
some interesting numbers.
hold on. I might have said that wrong. So it's goals times minutes played. Like let's for us, we play 60 minutes. So it'd be 1 times 60 divided by, let's say we got scored on in 1 minute, right? We're gonna have 60 goals against average for that game.
I don't think
Because
you're.
essentially, no, so what it is, right? You play that 1 minute
Oh, if
and
you played 1 minute of the game.
mhm,
Okay.
but we play 60-minute periods
Right.
or
No.
60-minute games.
Right.
It'd be like you're letting a goal in every minute for 60 minutes.
Right. But that's
So
to clarify, that's only if you were to play 1 minute of the game and allow one goal on one shot.
yes.
There's your 60 goals against average.
Yes. And obviously that's not an accurate representation of your play that game. Like you could
Right.
have like 100 shots in that minute and your goals against average is still a 1 or a 60.
Right.
So,
Interesting. Interesting take on that. I never really thought of it in that sense. You know, you don't really put it into perspective when it's like, oh, I could have only played half the game. So they're just going to, well, you play a period, let's say, they're just going to triple the amount of goals you let up that first period. There's a number. You're expected to give up, let's just say 16 goals.
did
No,
you actually
what?
let in 16 goals?
No.
No.
Right.
Have you ever
Exactly.
let in 16 goals? No.
I don't
Maybe,
think so.
right?
I don't think so, but
Maybe in youth.
it's been up there.
Yeah.
13s. I've seen some 13s behind me.
Yeah. But if you
Oh,
are interested in some of those more advanced analytics when it comes to like saves above expected, moneypuck.com has all of that information. And it has like all of the goalies that play. So if you're interested, you can check that out. Obviously, we're not sponsored by them, but if they'd like to, feel free.
yeah, that'd be awesome.
uh,
Um,
so
a lot of
what's
news in
next
the
on the?
goalie world.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. A lot of news in the goalie world. Equipment drops. What are we thinking,
Ooh.
Ty?
So first off, let's talk about all the new gear, right? So from the major, well, I guess from all the goalie brands, right? So we got the Warrior G7s. I'm a huge fan of Warrior. I love Warriors. I don't know why. I had a pair of G5s, favorite pad ever. We got the Shadows coming out from Bauer. We got the Axis XFs coming from CCM, SLR4s from Vaughn. Um, Brian's just released the Iconics, so those are
Eclipse
out.
as well.
Oh yeah, the Eclipse, the 580 brake angle for Brian's. Um, did I miss any?
I believe that's it.
On Brian's CCM Bauer Warrior.
Yeah. True
Oh,
is
and
not coming
True,
out. Oh, the
the
hazardous
PX4s.
PX4s.
Yep.
So,
Oh, I have information I can't say about that.
okay, we'll keep that to ourselves.
Yeah, I don't want to
Um,
get fired.
so I kind of want to hear what you're most excited for, um, gear wise this year.
I mean, obviously everybody is always trying to improve. Uh, I'm not going to be able to try every pad, but I think I am going to be able to try the Axis XFs. But I really have heard some cool stuff going on with like the Vons. They got like a new carbon knee board, and it's supposed to help you connect more directly to the pad, so you're not having like any over rotation or under rotation, or like any of that flare up by your foot when you're in the butterfly and RVHing.
Okay, so kind of similar to what Bauer did with their
Stabilo
connected
slide,
knee
yeah,
block
yep.
and okay, interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know Vaughn was also doing that.
Hmm.
But we see a lot of changes.
Oh yeah,
Brian's, they've kind of slowly went away with that knee roll. Um, with the genetic fives being their previous soft pad. They had half knee rolls if you want to consider it that way. Now we have two flat face lines from Brian's.
no knee
CCM.
rolls.
Yep. CCM. Still knee rolls on the
E flex.
E-flexes. Interesting. Um, but the XFs, are you excited about those?
I am very excited. I do think I might have to order myself a pair.
Really?
I was looking through the specs the other day. I mean, they're pretty basic, but I'm gonna get like Pro Custom. Uh, I tried a pair of Axis 2s. They weren't my favorite, but they were all right. My gripes with CCM and True have been mostly like with the speed skin. It doesn't really slide too well. So I think when I do reorder these, I'm going to get Emboss on the sliding surface, and I hope that'll slide a little bit better. That'd be more similar to like True or Brian's, not
So
True,
I
Vaughn or Brian's sliding material.
so I did go into Pure Hockey the other day to get fitted with Trues because I plan on ordering a custom set later this
Hmm.
month. If that works out, plenty of details I don't feel like putting in this episode. It'll bore the people away.
For sure.
So I was told that their fast slide material or fast glide, it's one of the two.
Yeah.
Actually really isn't that good. It's decent, slides good, but their weave does actually slide pretty good. And that's what you can find many pros using um, in the NHL right now, rather than the speed skin or the just the basic vinyl style
So,
material.
what is the difference between that fast slide and that other material that you were talking about?
The fast slide and the woven material.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that emboss you were talking about,
Okay.
both woven. The fast slide, it's kind of textured, so it reduces the friction on the ice, kind of like how speed skin was supposed to be.
I feel like
Um,
that kind of does the opposite, though. I'm no physicist, but
right,
you'd think the
right.
dimples would make it more surface area, slide
Well, it
slower. But
reduces it because technically those are the only points of contact.
I'm no
Kind of how
engineer, but that doesn't sound right.
I don't know.
Maybe they just
I
got it
heard
messed up, and I'm the smart one.
maybe.
Could be. Maybe I'm the next Bauer engineer.
I mean, you can look at Warrior. They have a lot of surface area, but
Oh
they
yeah.
still slide
Well,
great.
they just removed the air slide. Did you see that?
I did see that,
And then
but they still
obviously
slide great.
they do have that slide plate too, the plastic polycarbonate slide plate.
Hmm.
That thing is amazing.
So I did hear that going with the woven material, like the emboss. I think it's called carbone
Okay. That
with
sounds
shrew.
familiar.
Um, that they're also very good options rather than the speed skin, fast glide, whatever they are.
Yeah.
So we're probably boring our
Oh yeah, for
non-goalie
sure.
listeners right
Yeah,
now,
we're
but
talking goalie and too in depth.
this is a goaltending podcast, though. At the end of
Yes,
the
it is.
day, waffling around. That's how we got the name. Let's kind of go into that, how we started this podcast.
I
Um,
mean, it really all started just because we were goofing around and we liked listening to Jamie Phelps' podcast. So we're kind of like, hey, we could do that. Like, it's not hard.
right. And
So
I mean, we don't have like the degrees or the AHL playing experience or anything like that, but we have a good time just talking about nothing, and we wanted to share it with many people to see.
for
So,
sure, yeah, just watch us goofing. Um,
right.
but the name, so we were thinking we were trying to come up with some names like maybe in the paint or in the crease or something like that. And then Chris was like, well, how about waffling? Because that means to just joke around, like talk foolishly. So uh, we decided to go with waffling around. I mean,
And I was like thinking, what could be a term in hockey and just regular English language? And waffle boarding a puck is making a blocker save. And I'm like, well, waffling is just talking with no direct, like there's no direction with what you're saying. You're just waffling. You're just speaking to speak.
yeah, we're
There's
pretty good at that.
as we're doing today. Like this is
Right?
all over the place, but maybe it'll keep our viewers interested.
Hopefully,
Um,
keeping them on their toes.
right. You never know
Never
what's
know what
coming
we're
next with
talking about.
us. Um, so I wanted to tie it both together, and so that's how I kind of came up with waffling around, and we did a quick search just to make sure we weren't stealing anybody else's idea, and we found that it was available. So that's kind of how we came up with it. I'm kind of proud of it. We're working on a better logo than what we have as of right now when this upload does go up. And so you guys will be seeing that in the coming weeks. We're trying to figure it out. Yeah, but that's kind of how the podcast became a thing. Just me and Tyler chatting and saying we should record this and show it to the masses.
Got nothing to lose,
Nothing to lose. So it's funny. It's kind of motivational. It's like if you want to do something, just dig deep and do it. Just go for it because you never know what could happen.
for sure. Yeah, I
Like our
mean,
first, I don't want to say our first video was successful by any means, but it wasn't. It was better than what we had hoped for,
for sure.
right? So if you hope it goes right and it goes even better than right, you're setting yourself up for success. So
For sure.
definitely try something you've been planning to do for a while. You might not regret it.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Little unexpected appearance there, so just have to make a little cut there. So let's really just circle back around, right? Start talking hockey again. What are your thoughts on some? What are your thoughts on children playing more than one sport? Do you think that's beneficial?
Oh,
Like, let's get into that a little bit.
so you mentioned this to me the other day when we were kind of talking about this week's podcast,
Yeah,
and I kind of went to thinking on it. I have I don't know, student goalie that I work with his team privately on our own, and he plays. I believe he plays soccer. He goes to the trampoline park with his brother all the time. They do that consistently, and I think it's actually really good for especially younger hockey players to do
for
other
sure,
sports. You can kind of build a lot of skill in other sports to help you with hockey and vice versa. So I personally think it's good. Now, what do you think? And now we're only speaking for younger ages at this point.
All right. So when I was growing up, I played baseball and hockey. I just recently stopped playing baseball, like when I was in high school. But I do think that coordination. Like obviously hitting a baseball isn't the same as whacking a hockey puck, right? There's definitely some more like I think there's advantages to being more athletic essentially. And essentially, well, this ties into something else we were going to talk about hopefully this week, athletic goalies versus fundamental goalies, but we'll get to that in a minute. Um, but like, let's just go to it now.
Well, I had another point
Oh,
I
go
wanted to
ahead.
bring up.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh boy, this
Go
episode's
ahead.
kind of all over the
Yeah, it
place.
is. We might just be cutting a lot.
Oh,
We'll see. We'll see.
hopefully not. But
Hopefully,
here we go. So, playing multiple sports, we were talking about younger age.
for sure.
What I want to ask you is, what age should you decide on one sport?
Oh, this one. That's a tough one, honestly. I
Right.
mean,
There's so many ways you could break it down.
for sure. Yeah, because when I turned 16, I didn't make the baseball team. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to specialize in hockey. Like, that's just speaking from personal experience. But
Right.
I mean, I don't think there's any cons to playing hockey or baseball or any other sport for as long as you can. Because the way I look at it, you're only young once, so you got to do it all while you can. Because like once you're over 18, there's no like organized baseball, for example. At least where I am. But I mean, I wish I would have stuck with it. And the only thing I might be able to see, like, because I was a catcher, would be like maybe bad knees from squatting down so much. But I never really had problems with that. So
So I'm going to take a different approach
I
and
gotcha.
talk more on the serious side of athletics rather than you're young, have fun, do everything you want to do.
Hmm.
So I think it's great, like I said, for younger players. I'm going to give a number here. You could disagree with me. Under 14 to play multiple sports.
Under 14. So
Under
at 14,
14.
you specialize.
I think 14 you specialize. I definitely think so. Because about 9, 10, 11, maybe even 12, you start to specialize in your position.
Hmm.
So now once you're specialized in your position, specialize in your sport,
Yeah,
right? So I think you pick whichever of the two, three, four you play, and whether that be the one you're best at or the one you enjoy the most, you carry on with that one, especially if you're looking to get very talented with that sport. Now,
for
I'm
sure.
not saying that it's impossible to play multiple sports past the age of 14. It's more than possible. And you can get very good at both sports or three sports after the age of 14, playing them all at the same time. But I think that if you're using the off season to train in another sport, especially talking about hockey, if you're off the ice, let's say during spring and summer because you have baseball, when you put your skates back on for training camp in the fall, it's going to feel horrible. It's not going to feel good, right? So I think after 14, you spend your spring, you spend your summers on skates, training towards the sport you're specializing in. And I think you'll see a great amount of progress um, in that sport you specialize in.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's different takes. It's not advice; it's just our thoughts on it. Um,
Absolutely.
Everybody's free to think what they want. Personally, when I was growing up, I would like have a game one day, and then I'd be playing men's league at night. So like, I'm on the ice and out in the sun all day playing baseball, having fun. Like twice as much fun in one day. Each to your own, right? I mean, it is what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you're saying athletic versus fundamental goalies. This will kind of wrap things up for this week's episode.
Yeah,
Um, could be some hot takes here.
for sure.
Um,
You want to
why
start it,
don't
or
you
you want me to
begin?
start?
Why don't
All
you
right.
begin? Because this is your point, and I know you have some opinions on this formulated. I kind of want to hear what you have to say, and then I'm going to build off you.
Hmm. Yeah. So I was talking to this goalie the other night. I actually tell him about the podcast, tell him about this topic. because I figured we'd be talking about it. And what I was telling him, right, as a goalie, in my opinion at least, your job is to not save the puck, but to put yourself in a position to save the puck. Whether that is skating, making sure you're in the right spot before the play gets there, or let's say you're out of position and you have to like make a desperation save or something like dive, flail around, like make that save. So there's definitely aspects of it where you need to be fundamental, but you also can't rely on your fundamentals too much because you're trying to play relaxed, right? And when you're relaxed, I mean, you're not at your heightened awareness, right? Like sometimes you're behind the play or you do something wrong and you got to get over there, right? You got to make that save. So you got to be athletic and fundamental. That way you can be a good goalie.
Right. And I think that's what makes watching like NHL goalies specifically so great because their fundamentals are top tier. Phenomenal. Phenomenal goaltenders. But the excitement comes when they're out of position for that second or third save and their true athleticism shows and takes over and they make those split saves, those scorpion saves, just straight up like marvelous saves that you can't even like figure out on
Like,
your
how
own. I'm
did he save that?
like why did he choose to do that? Like what made him kick his leg in that way? That's where the athleticism and the just being so good at your sport that you can do something like that at that level. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, in my personal opinion, am I taking a fundamental goalie or am I taking an athletic goalie if I'm the head coach of a team? I'm taking the fundamental goalie.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a tough one, right? Because obviously the fundamentals you're always working on those, right? You can teach somebody the fundamentals, right? So I think I'd probably have to take the athletic goalie because it's a little harder to be athletic than it is to be fundamental, in
Okay.
my opinion. I
So,
mean,
to wrap things up, let's explain why we chose what we did and then maybe argue about it for about a couple minutes and then we'll let the people go.
sounds
Okay?
good.
Sounds fair? Do you want to start?
Ooh, how about you start?
Okay. I'm picking the fundamental goalie night in, night out. Here's my opinion, basically my only reasoning for it. A fundamental goalie makes the saves you should make on a day-to-day basis. So if he plays on Friday and he's playing next Friday, he's making the same saves over and over and over again. So there's a consistent goaltender in that. I'm not saying athletic goalies cannot be consistent. I'm just saying that goalie is so good at the basics that anything basic that's coming his way is going to be saved. So that's why I'm taking the fundamental goalie over the athletic goalie. He's not relying on athleticism. He's not getting himself out of position. He's making calm saves, putting pucks into corners, doing what he does best, and that's being fundamental. And I think that's the biggest part of the game.
Yeah, I mean, your points obviously make sense. My argument for an athletic goalie would be like you can teach him the fundamentals, right? Like, let's say he's a little bit shorter, so he's a little more athletic. That's just how it tends to be. So, um, obviously, they can't play like a 6'3" guy would, like if they're like 5'8" or something like that. But they can obviously compete at the same level as that 6'3" guy. They just have to play each situation a little bit differently. So instead of being at the top of their crease, maybe they're like a 6'3" goalie would be at the top of the or middle of the crease, a little bit of depth management, right? The 5'8" goalie's at the top of the crease. He's got to take away a little bit more net, right? But let's say he's able to do splits. He can make a split save to the back door, whereas that tall guy just kind of does like a little pad slide to the back door and he's just hits him in the chest. Whereas at 5'8", goalie's making that glove save. I mean, it could go either way, right? Obviously, you want a mix of the both. You want a mix of the
Right.
athletic and the fundamental
And that's what makes an NHL goalie an NHL goalie. They're
for
able
sure.
to consistently do both night in, night out.
Hmm.
But
But
that's why I would take that fundamental guy.
yeah, I mean, that makes plenty of sense, but it's harder to teach athleticism, in my opinion, right? So let's
Right.
say you're just behind the play as a fundamental goalie. You're not going to be able to get your fundamentals back on track in time. And I think when it comes to like
That's true.
fundamentals, it's almost like you're thinking about it too much. You're overcomplicating it in your head sometimes, and you're worried about like, oh, I got to make a T push to right here, and then I got to do a pad slide over there to make the backdoor save. Whereas like maybe I have to do a desperation dive because the shot's so quick. Like I don't know.
Right. No, I think that's a fair point.
It could
Kind
definitely
of
go
like
either way.
kind of like that little argument at the end. Maybe that's a segment we do. Hopefully somebody sponsors that segment. You know,
Maybe.
friendly feud, just going back and forth.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be great. Um, so I think that about does it for today's podcast. A little bit more off the rails, but kind of giving some background information, some goalie information, being nerds. Um, but yeah, we appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. How about it?
Thank you. Thank you guys.